Hello everybody and welcome back to the ZHP Garage. Hope you guys are doing good. And look at this. It was 5 seconds after part 1. 5 seconds for us and like a few days for you. Flipped it again, huh? How do you like that? So continuing on with the Turbo LS build. That's all I gotta say. I don't know what else to say. Master Mechanic is still working just like he was in the end of the other video. So before we get started, make sure to go down below and hit the subscribe button if you enjoy what you see. Hit the like button if you like the video. Comment down below. Whatever you want to do, man. So let's start with putting these pistons in and we will go from there.
In this episode of LS Engines, we will be installing the pistons with new ARP rod bolts. So I already got the crank and everything is all wiped down, pistons wiped down, rod, cleaned it up. It's got a little carbon on here, but nothing crazy. The rings move, everybody's happy. So I'm going to rotate this here so to throw the crank farthest away from the rod. And I'm going to start in number 1. I like to start in 1 and just all the way back. So we're going to rotate this guy up. I already wiped out the cylinders. Oh, excuse me.
Goodness gracious.
Excuse me.
You scared the crap out of me.
All right, so we got our piston here. We got it ready to go in. Got our cylinder up, crank all the way down. So the dot is going to go to the front. And we didn't take the rings or nothing off, but we kind of changed the location of them. I like to put the top ring down. I got the second ring, 180. So second ring's up, and then little oil rings. I got them at the wrist pin. So keep the combustion chamber sealed up. Got the bearing lubed, and this one here I don't have the installer. If you watch the other video, so this one I'm going to use the universal guy. So you got to watch it. You got to pay attention to where your rings are at. So you don't want the gap, because this isn't going to go. It's not going to go tight. So you don't want the gap of the ring and the gap of the installer. So you got to offset a little bit, and you got to be careful not to rotate it because you'll rotate your rings all over the place. So set it up. You can either go, just watch where your rings are at. So we can collapse our rings. And you can see how you got a little bit before the gap, so you gotta hold it taut so your rings don't fall out. Then let your wrist pin guide you up. And these are a little bit, you don't have the studs like the conventional small blocks, so a little less to nick stuff with. We'll set this guy down in here. And you want to get the dot pretty much straight as possible so you're not twisting everything around. And then we're just going to use a mallet and just gently. So we got to make sure our installer is down tight to the block and even. So that's good. And then we're just going to bring it down in there and go slow in case it catches. You don't bust a ring. So here we go. We got it inside. We want to grab the rod, then we're going to push it down into place. And then we can flip the engine back over, put the cap on it. We're gonna have to lube that up. So we got our cap all cleaned up here, and we got our stock bearings knocked out of it. So make sure you line up the two locks. The locks go lock to lock. When you put the cap back on, you kind of, if you flip it, you can tell because these are the crack cap, they call them. They break them, so they pretty much only go on one way. It's the way they're broken is the way they're gonna go on, but the locks go together. And when you put it on here, it should when it's tightened down, look like there's no seam there. And these are the old bolts, and you can see that these are a stretch bolt. You can see where it's stretching here, this thread. It's like a wider gap. But we're replacing it. We've got some ARPs. Got some ARP bolts we're putting on here. So trashing these. We're gonna grab a couple ARPs and put our ARP lube on it. We're gonna torque them down. This is the exciting part right here. Lubing up your bolts. No dry bolts here. So you can do these a couple different ways. So you can use a stretch gauge on it, which you come around here and measure the stretch of the bolt as you tighten it, so they all could be a little bit differently. Or you can just torque it to 45 foot-pounds. So we're not getting crazy. We're only looking to make like 500 horse or something with this thing, so we don't need to get too critical. So we're just gonna go with the 45 foot-pounds. We're gonna skip the stretch bolt style. So we'll go 45 foot-pounds. When you have your rod in here the right way, it should be centered. See down here on the wrist pin that if this was flipped, it would be over to one side or crammed against the other, and you see it's even on both sides of the piston to the rod. That's why you have your dot to the front. We didn't take this all apart, but if you're building this from scratch, you want to make sure your rod's in the right direction and that your piston's going to be clocked in the right direction, or else you'd have the offset wrong, and then the rod would be crammed up against the piston. So we got this one torqued down. We got same bearings. I mean, everything's the same. So the only thing we change is the bolts, and you can see where now that it's torque tight, because of the style of the rod, you can't even see where it splits at. There's no line, no nothing. That's when you know you got the rod cap on the right direction. If you have it flipped, it won't sit evenly, and you'll see the line where the rod comes, the cap comes off the rod. So we're gonna set up the tripod here, let you hang out a minute. We're gonna get the rest of them in here. We'll go on from there. As you can see from the time lapse, we got all the pistons in it, rods and everything, got them all back in. So now we're gonna flip it up. I wanna put the oil pump on it next. I still wanna take it apart, just check it and then give it a good prime. Just check our main housing, make sure there's no debris or anything in it. Looks good. I'm not gonna worry about wiping out all the oil since we need it lubed. Just wanna make sure there's no debris got in it, moving it around or anything. Take out the crank pulley here really quick. Get it out of the way. I just put it in there hand tight, but I was using it to turn the engine over, so it's gotta give it a little bump to break it loose. So you can see how it's got a little bit of float to it. So we kind of want to split the difference so it's not grinding on the gear here. So when we get these snug down, it needs to get torqued to 18 foot-pounds also. When we get them down here, get it so we can still move the housing. We'll pull it up so it's not touching the gear. Kind of eyeball it all the way around, and we'll torque it down. So we'll take our outer gear now. Make sure no dirt got on it. Looks good. We're gonna put some assembly on this because it's pretty dry from just taking it apart and looking at it. So we'll lube up the outside. And on the inside here, we're just gonna run up against the case. You gotta line it up with the crank, outer gear at the same time. So we got a little dab. I put a little dab of Loctite on the end. It already ran around the threads, but we got a little Loctite on there. Before we put this cover on here, we want to cram a whole bunch of lube in here to prime this thing when we first crank it over, because if this thing's dry or just a light coat of oil, it's not going to do anything. So now that I have the oil pump on here, I kind of want to get this thing, start sealing it back up, especially with all this assembly lube and stuff dripping. So I'm going to flip it back over now, and I want to put the woodless tray and then oil pump pickup on it. And then I can put the timing cover on it here. We can get the front of this engine sealed up, and then I'll probably move to the heads because the rear cover's not on it right now, so I don't want to put the oil pan all the way on it. But we can get the front of it. We start getting it sealed up so it won't be dripping out of the front here. So we got just a stock woodless tray. Don't need to go nothing fancy. So we get the longer studs here. It appears that we have to drill out 2 of the holes on the woodless tray here. They fit all the other ones, but the stock bolts have a stud on it, and they're obviously smaller. So being it's getting late, we're gonna call it a day for right now, or a night. We're gonna cover this thing up. We're gonna come back to it. We'll get it finished up for you, so hold tight. Got our woodless tray drilled out, the 2 holes that were a little small. So we got everything torqued, checked, everything looks great. All back together, looking good. So we're gonna put our woodless tray on. Then we have the nuts that came with the studs. They're just a little, what kind of lock nut. They're lock nut. So the one here gets used with the oil pump pickup. So we'll put all the other nuts on except for the one. ARP wants these torqued to 28 foot-pounds. So we're gonna torque all those down. Then we're gonna put the oil pump pickup on it. And this doesn't matter how you torque it. It's not gonna change anything. So you can just go any way you wanna go. Now we'll get our pickup, and the O-ring we're going to use on the pickup is the one that comes with the pan, because there's a difference on the, I don't know if it's a radius or the pickup. I think it's the pickup tube itself on which color O-ring you use. But this one came with the whole pan kit, the pickup, the oil pan, everything. So we're going to use the one that comes with it. We're going to use some of our assembly lube on this O-ring. Wetter the better. You don't want it to cut going in there. So we'll get a little on the oil pump here, on the radius. Get it on the O-ring. Careful not to cut it on this tube when you put it on, so trying to work it on easy. We're going to put it in the oil pump first. We're not going to worry about lining up where it mounts. We want to get it in the oil pump straight and even. And we want to get our nut or our bolt in here to hold the pickup down so it doesn't come back up. Need to do a little massaging on this because it's all aftermarket stuff. It's all good there. Put our last nut here that holds down the pickup. Then we're going to torque the nut here. We're going to do this 89 inch-pounds. And we'll torque the nut to 28, same as the other ones. Yeah. Got the witness tray on, got the oil pump pickup on. So now I want to deal with the valve train. I want to get the lifters in it, so we're going to rotate this thing up. We got the valley here all cleaned up. We're going to start sealing this thing up now. We're not going to flip it over again until we get the top end sealed up. So we won't have any more oil running out. So we got it wiped off. We got this cover. This just deletes the active fuel management. Same one we used on this fine Nova. So it comes with a gasket and everything, and it puts a breather in the valley. Little O-rings that seals up all the passages that would normally go to the solenoids. So let's make sure that we're all clean, nothing crazy. Comes with the bolts and everything, man. It's the easiest delete. And these bolts, because of the gasket, are going to hold up the cover from going all the way down. So once you get it lined up, you can push it down on there. And then some of the bolts fall out in the bag and shipping, so you got to get your rest of your bolts out. Got all of our bolts started. We're going to go ahead and torque them down 18 foot-pounds. And we kind of want to bring them down evenly. So once it starts getting kind of snug, we'll move around. Doesn't distort the cover or anything. Does it all even as it brings the gasket down. All right. So now we're going to get our lifters in here. We've got our non-display on demand lifter guides here. We're going to put a little lube on the inside of it here where the lifters are going to ride up and down. Then we're going to take our lifters, and these lifters are all ran with the cam and everything, same age. So we're going to load these things up. And we already wiped them all off, checked them out, blew them out. They're all good. Once we get it all loaded up, we're going to put some assembly lube here on the axles and the rollers. These are already oiled. Came out of a running engine, but we'll just put some in here that can run down. Just a little extra, not gonna hurt anything. You can see we got our little guides here, little humps. That's to line up the factory ones for the display on demand. So they go a certain way, but these ones don't matter. See, it's got a little notch here, so it can go on this one, or it can go back here. Just gonna slide them down in here. Give a little wiggle, line everything up. And there it is. Now we need to find our bolts. Hold please. Got the bolts, found the bolts. And you see these ones here have a little shoulder on them. So you don't, when you tighten it down, you don't crush this little piece of fancy plastic. And all these are doing is just holding these plastic little retainers, little guides in place, so you don't need to get crazy. It's like an 89 inch-pound kind of deal. I'll just do it by hand. We got this side in, we're gonna do the same thing, repeat on the other side. We'll do the same deal. So now we got all of our lifters in it. We got our little guides tightened down, cleaned off our deck surface, put our alignment pins back in it. Now we're gonna put the heads on this thing. We got new head gaskets here. They're just stock replacements. The only thing you gotta note is it's marked in the front. So this is gonna be on this side over here. Set it on the dowel pins. That is the same head gasket for 6 liters and 6.2s. Got our cylinder heads here all cleaned up. So we're just gonna set these on here. We're just gonna go straight down. Try not to slide it on the gasket. Eyeball our upper bolts here. Just like so. And it'll sit there on the dowels. And these heads can go on either way, but I normally put them back on the way it was. So the temperature sensor is normally on the driver's side in the front. So I put it back on. So it's on the same way, but you can put the temperature side on that side if you want. And then we got a set of ARP head bolts for this. So these head bolts have head bolt washers. A little undercut on one side. Other side it doesn't. I normally put the undercut side to the head bolt side, just so it doesn't get messed up on the radius under the head. You want to make sure all these holes are cleared out because these are a blank hole. So if you've got any debris or water in any of these holes, and you go ahead and torque the bolt in there, you can hydraulic it and you can crack the block. So make sure all your holes are blown out. So of course we're going to use the ARP lubricant. I'm just going to put it on the threads and under the head, and I'm not worried about under the washer because it's going to move. I want it to move on the washer, not on the cylinder head. So we just use an air ratchet to run all the bolts down snug. These are a little different than factory, obviously. These go 25, 50, then 80 on the bigger ones, and then after these are all torqued, you do the top ones here, and these are 25 foot-pounds. So we're going to start at 25 on these, do all these 25, then we'll go around again, all 50, then the last final pass at 80, and then we'll torque these ones at 25. We're going to start in the middle, just want to do a crisscross. Because these are a multi-layer gasket, so I like to make sure that the baseline is they're all even. So I'll just go around every one of them to make sure that they're all at 25, that the center ones didn't get loosened up when the other ones got torqued, when the gasket got crushed down. Because if your base is off, your first torque, then all your torque's going to be off. So now we're going to step it up to 50. So we can get the bigger. We got to get the big guy for that.
A few moments later.
That ain't going nowhere. So now we're going to get our push rods. Put our push rods and rockers on here now. Let's grab some push rods. So we're just using our factory rocker stands. This is what keeps your rockers straight. This little divot, so it torques down, keeps it from twisting on you, falling off the valve spring. Got our push rods here. We're gonna run in just a stockers that come with this cam. We're not, I mean, the Z06 springs are only good for like 550 lifts, so this is what GM put in them. So that's what we're putting in it. So we're gonna lube both sides. We'll just lube the bottom side first, where it goes into the lifter. Then we'll just slide them down in there, and you can make sure that they're down in there. And you get in there, push it down. Push your lifter down to the camshaft. Then we're gonna lube the top of the push rod where the rocker's gonna sit on it. Then we're gonna also lube the top of the valve stem. Right now, being that we have the L92 cylinder heads, we're gonna have an offset rocker. So make sure it's gonna be staggered. So it's gonna be straight, offset, and then straight. If you're having trouble lining everything up, you might have the wrong rocker. Same on the other side. Repeat, repeat. We'll put a little dab of assembly lube in here for where the bolt's gonna ride. So when we torque it down, it's not metal on aluminum. Metal on rocker. Got all of our rockers snug down. You want to turn the engine over as you do it. Well, not as you do it, but you want to get them all down snug, and then turn. I like to turn the engine. You're supposed to do it 360 degrees, and then torque the other ones. But if you just rotate it, I like to just spin it and then check them, and it helps everything to rock and seat and get it all lined up. And then once you know you got them all down snug, everybody's happy. Then you're gonna go down and torque them to all the 22 foot-pounds. Make sure that the rockers are all, get the right rocker in the right spot. Everybody's happy. And then when you torque it, it should wind up being, pretty consistent on how much more you have to go to torque them. If one's super crazy and acting weird, then take a look at it and make sure that, you got your push rod seated in there right, that everything's good. So now we got the cylinder heads on it. Everything, rockers, everybody's happy. Now we're gonna start sealing this thing up. So we're gonna start with the valve covers. So we got both valve covers put on this thing. Got it top end sealed up here. We're gonna put the timing cover on it now. We don't have the dampener that's going on here yet. So we're just gonna use the old one that was on it to center up the timing cover. So it's just a brand new cover. Just deletes variable cam timing, comes with a new cam sensor and everything. Crank seal, thing's dialed. Bolts, gasket, just bolts right on. So already cleaned all the gasket surface off here. It's all clean and dry. So I'm gonna throw this on here first, just get the bolt started. I'm not gonna tighten it down or anything. Some exciting stuff right here, huh? This is happening right here.
Well, what are you waiting for?
I don't know. Something amazing, I guess.
So we're gonna grab our oil pan. As you can see, the thing got a little dirty, but we're going to be drilling a hole in it. So we're not gonna clean it out yet. So we're just worried about where it's gonna meet to the block. So make sure the block is cleared off also. So we got a couple bolts. We're just gonna do two midway. Don't let it hang from one bolt. You can crack your oil pan. So make sure you get it held up there evenly. So you see all this has movement in it. So if you get this on without the pulley on it, you can get it off center of your crank seal, and the thing will be leaking on you. Take it out the seals, or you can cock it like this. You got a gap here. It's not sitting tight on the pan rail, so you need to. That's why you want to get this all aligned before you tighten it all up. Pretty much, I'm only using the pan to make sure that the cover is even with it, so it doesn't try to break the pan or anything. So I'm gonna put a couple bolts here in the front now. So I'm gonna make sure these lined up before I tighten up the pan, because I can have it back too far, and then these ones won't line up. Just bringing it down, but not having them touch. Now we'll tighten up our pan to the block, and then we're gonna put a little lube on this pulley, so the seal's not all dried up. We'll use our assembly lube on the pulley snout here, a little hub. So we got our installer. No beating your pulley on with a hammer. Put the hammer down. Little stud, little nut, little bearing. Now that we have our crank seal centered up because of the pulley, so now we're going to snug down the bottom ones here. So we're going to draw these down to the cover. Just snug. You want to be able to let it move. And now we can torque down our cover. And these are all 18 foot-pounds. So we're not using this pulley like I talked about, but I want to leave this on here for right now just to keep the front crank seal sealed up. We're going to take our installer back out, and then I'm going to put the new bolt in here just so it's all in the same spot, but we're not gonna worry about torquing it right now. So now we're gonna flip it over and we're gonna put the oil pan on it. Being that we're gonna drill a hole in this, so we're gonna have to clean it out afterwards. So we gotta take all this back out. So we gotta strip it down. Take off our little oil cooler block off here, and we're gonna take out our drain plug. And like we said previously, that this is our sponsor's oil pan. Our sponsor, good old C10 Dave. We bought him a new pan because of this right here. Poor guy. So we got him a new one. We got a little scraped up. So thanks, Dave, for giving us your pan. Not technically, because I bought him a new one. But anyways, so now we need to decide where we're going to have our oil return. You want to have it obviously the high spot, and then the turbo is going to be mounted on the passenger side. So
The next day.
So we found a spot for our oil return. We're gonna put it right here. And this is the only fitting I have at the moment. We're gonna get a bigger one later, but the thread side is big enough because this is 1/2 inch pipe. So we can definitely up it, but this is only -8. But I have a cap and a fitting, so we'll get another fitting for down the road. We'll try to do a 12, -12 return, but -12 will come in a 1/2 inch pipe, so we'll be good. So we're gonna drill the pan, kind of marked a little bit higher. We're gonna bring that down a little bit. Tap it 1/2 inch pipe. And then we're gonna make sure to do it just a little at a time because we need this fitting to be flush on the inside of the pan because the oil pickup runs right here. So we can't have this sticking through, it'll just restrict it. So we gotta have this even with the pan. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? We're gonna do a center punch here. Bam! We're gonna drill it here. We gotta step it up a little bit to get up to, we gotta drill, what size is this drill? This is a size, a drill used for a 1/2 inch pipe is a 45/64. So we need to step it up to this. Because if you try to go just to this, it's going to walk all over the place and make a bigger hole than this. So we're going to step it up a little bit. We're going to start out with the little guy. You can see this fitting on this pan, it sits crooked. And we want it to be in there straight. Brand new oil pan, drilling holes in it. I tell you what. So we got it drilled out here, got a ginormous hole. And then this is a pipe tap. The more you tap it, because it's tapered, the more you tap it, the further this is gonna go in. So I wanna check this because I want it to be even on the inside. So I'm gonna put a little anti-seize in here to lube it and so it doesn't catch on all this aluminum. And we wanna start this, we want it to go straight because remember that the pan is at an angle. We want it to be straight into the pan. So we're gonna get it all the way through and check it. Once we get it started, you kinda wanna go back and forth. Go a little bit. Back up a little bit. Repeat. So we got our hole all tapped here. Got the pan cleaned out. We got our little baffle put back in it. And then on the inside here, we sanded a little burr off of it. So we put a little Teflon paste on here. We're just gonna put this guy in there. There's no pressure on this, so you don't have to get super crazy. It's just a return line. Metric wrench is a tad off the right size. Don't look. Close your eyes. See, we got it right even with the pan. Works good for me. That's what I wanted. So now we're gonna take our cap and we're just gonna seal it up for right now until we get it all mocked up with the turbo. And so now we're gonna flip the engine over and we're gonna wipe off the pan rails and we're gonna put the gasket and torque the oil pan on it. Get this thing sealed up. All right, so we got it flipped over. We're just gonna put a little bit of dab of silicone on the little, where the front cover meets the block, and then when we put the rear cover on, we'll do the same, but we're gonna just do the front for right now. So we'll get a little dab of silicone here, put it right where the gasket's gonna go over the top. We got ourselves a brand new gasket. Then we have our oil pan, all nice and wiped off, clean and dry, cleaned out. So we'll just set it on there straight down. About like so. Return line strategically misses the 2 bolt holes. Almost like it was made for it. So got it all snugged down. Now we're gonna torque these bolts to 18 foot-pounds also. That ain't going nowhere. That's one of those rods that decide to exit the side of the block, then whole different story. So we're not running an oil cooler on this thing. We took the little block off cover off to clean the pan out, so we're gonna put our little block off back on here on the side of the pan. Before we put the oil filter on it, we're gonna flip it over because we're gonna fill the oil filter full of oil to help this guy on the initial startup. These are 89 inch-pounds if you want to torque them. Put our drain plug back in already, we tightened that up. So we're able to sneak the back cover on it without taking it off the stand. It's gonna torque the oil pan here, the 2 rear bolts. So now I need to torque these cover. These get torqued to 22 foot-pounds. We got some oil in our filter. Got our nice AC Delco. All factory, man. Numbers matching. Last thing we're gonna do is put the dipstick in it. It's not gonna be a final install because we're gonna take it back off to deal with the manifolds. So I'll just put a little bit of lubricant on the O-ring here. And we'll just put it in here. Seal up the dipstick hole. There you have it. Complete long block. For the people that stayed all the way to the end, they get a little sneak peek here. We got ourselves a Nelson Racing, 72 millimeter. This is the mirror. This is the mirror one. So this is a reverse rotation turbo. Look at this. Look at this gold. Oh yeah. Look at that. So we're gonna be running the Hooker exhaust manifolds. So this thing's gonna be mounted. It's gonna be mounted about like so. So we gotta clock this. We gotta rotate because the oil that returns here. This will be down. We're gonna rotate that down. Then it feeds on top here. Or we can put it up here like a good power stroke. Set it in the valley. It's gonna be a runner. Just wait. Just hold on.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video of us putting together the LS3. So in the next video, we will be dealing with the front drive. We'll be getting the headers and we'll start, you know, mocking everything up. Start putting together the front drive, put the manifolds on there and see how we're gonna route everything with the turbo, other stuff like that. So stay tuned till next video on this thing. Hopefully next we can get some C10 and a little bit of Nova action going on. So stay tuned for that as well. If you haven't already, go down below, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share it around if you enjoyed it a lot, and see you guys all next time.